and our panelists for this session. This session is on the topic of future of bus industry in India, and we are indeed very honored to have with us Shri Ambuj Sharma, Additional Secretary, the Ministry of Heavy Industries, Government of India, with us. He has kindly consented to chair this session. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in extending a very hearty welcome to Shri Sharma. A very warm welcome to you. May I now invite our session co-chair. Ladies and gentlemen, we have with us Mr. Akash Basi, Senior Vice President, Volvo. May I please request him to kindly join us. May I now invite our panelist, Mr. Rajendra Kumar Kataria, Managing Director of the Karnataka SRTC, Ms. Sonila Mitushi, Policy Officer Passenger Transport and Taxis from the International Road Transport Union, Mr. Anthony Chacko, CMD Kerala SRTC, Mr. Per Alapi from Scania CVAB Bus and Coach Business, Mr. Nishant Arya, Executive Director from the JBM Group, Mr. Partha Bosu, India Director and South Asia, Lawson Clean Air Asia, and our presenter for this session, Mr. Prasanna Patwardhan, MD of Purple Mobility. A very warm welcome to our session chair and panelists for this session. We have with us Mr. Sharma, Additional Secretary in the Ministry of Heavy Industries. He has held various senior level posts in both the State Government of Tamil Nadu as well as Government of India in different departments, which includes Industry, Revenue, Home and Urban Development. He also oversees the implementation of the National Auto Testing Research and Infrastructure Project NATRIP, which is aimed at establishing modern state-of-the-art auto testing, homologation and RD facilities at 7 centers across India. Shri Sharma is presently also Director on the Board of Bharat Heavy Electrical Limited, Hindustan Paper Corporation, and a member of Governing Councils of Automotive Research Association of India and NATRIP respectively. Ladies and gentlemen, may I now request Session Chair to kindly make his opening remarks and chair this panel discussion.
Okay. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Very exciting topic on women's safety. It's obvious that's an area which needs more attention. You could see the passion in the room. We started this session immediately. I know a few people have stepped out for a short break. Hopefully they'll be back soon. We have with us Mr. Ambuj Sharma. Needs no introduction, from Ministry of Heavy Industries, the Additional Secretary. We all in the automobile field have been interacting and getting good support from you, Mr. Sharma, over the years. We welcome all the panelists. I will not again go through the names. That was done before. The session is on future of bus industry in India. Personally, I'm also very happy to participate in this session. What we have today is a presenter, Mr. Prasanna Patwardhan, who also for people in the bus industry does not need any introduction. He is one of the persons who has been in the bus industry, and as I know from his family, for almost 50, 60 years now, and taking on that mental to another new level as Managing Director of Purple Mobility, moving on from long distance transport over the last 5-7 years, very much into the city segment. So the intention is that Mr. Prasanna presents his view, and the panelists here get to discuss their views on the future of bus industry. So over to you, Mr. Prasanna Patwardhan.
Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to show you a clip to start with.
पब्लिक का नया ट्रांसपोर्ट।
नया हीरो होंडा सीडी डॉन, कीमत सिर्फ 31,899 रुपए। पब्लिक का नया ट्रांसपोर्ट।
How many of you feel insulted after seeing this film? I personally felt very insulted when I saw this film, because this clearly shows, as public transport providers, we are failing somewhere, and that is why people are going for other options. So with this note, I would start my presentation. Firstly, today we need to decide on which way we would like to go. Whether we would like to go back to our dark ages, or we would like to see a better future. If you continue like this, then this is the scene which will continue over, I don't know, next how many years. Old theory, I have been listening to this theory for quite some time now. In fact, my father also listened to this theory, that when you build roads, you will solve transport problems. But what has been observed is we are increasing our transport problems by widening roads, building over bridges, and this is what is the result of last many years. People were not buying their own vehicles, or they were not using their own vehicles before 1985, because there was not much of an opportunity. But the moment people got opportunity, people started buying those vehicles. And that is why you see today there is huge growth. Out of total something like 16 crores of vehicle, there are only 16 lakh buses, which is less than 1%, which used to be about 15% just 25-30 years back. So down from 15% to 1% is very serious matter. Now what new theory says, if you look at some of the international examples like Seoul, even automobile country like USA is now changing their city designs, and they are now building more and more cities which are public friendly, people friendly, and not automobile friendly. So it is very important that we build our cities to start with, which are for people and which are not for automobiles. Similarly, for last mile connectivity, we must build cycle tracks and footpaths. And if you look at this picture, it will clearly show that if you want to decongest the roads, you need to use more buses. Unfortunately, wherever you go, the first thing to be banned, if at all there is a rush, there is a traffic jam, first thing to be banned is the bus. And last thing to be banned is the clip which you saw. So then why would people will go towards the bus? And with cars and two-wheelers getting easy access, people will opt for that. But I see a great future in our country, because our road network is second largest in the world. It has expanded from 4 lakh kilometers to 47 lakh kilometers, and we have highest road density. If we support that with other allied infrastructure, then we can certainly change our country. So if you look global scenario for number of buses per 1,000 people, we have huge task ahead of us. So we normally compare ourselves to China. So China has about 6 buses per 1,000, whereas we have 1 bus per 1,000. So we can certainly grow, and if we act properly, timely manner, then this is the kind of growth which will come automatically. If not, then probably growth would come, but it would come in different way, like the clippings which I showed you. So public transport is expected to grow at approximately 16% every year. In 2006, unfortunately Mr. O.P. Agarwal, I saw him, but today he is not here, but he is the person who actually literally drafted this policy. It is such a beautiful document, but nothing is happening on this. So if you read through this, it says, ensure coordinated planning for urban transport. I have yet to see that. Ensure integrated land use and transport planning. People-focused and equitable allocation of road space. We are reducing footpaths and allowing more and more vehicles to ply on the road. Investments in public transport and non-motorized modes. I have been requesting many authorities for last so many years that at least give 10% of road budget to public transport and see how this country would look different. So 10% of road budget is a reasonably huge budget which can certainly change scene of this country. So there are many good things which are written but not implemented. But in spite of all hurdles, in last 60 years, from 30% market share, we have grown to 90% of the market share. I believe now it is high time that government recognizes this. If you look at who is serving all these people. So here is the data which states that if you look at this data, 16 lakh buses or around 17 lakh buses. Unfortunately, organized sector, which I believe is state transport undertaking is organized sector has not grown. So unorganized or some of the organized operators, they have grown and now they contribute to almost 90% of the service. So let us take some reality checks. So total buses in India are 16.76 lakhs, out of which owned by private are 15.44 lakhs and balanced by STUs. By refusing to take participation from private operator, I believe is STUs are not only losing opportunity to grow by themselves, but also indirectly promoting unorganized, unplanned growth, which is bad for the transport sector. Some of the people in this room, they may not like my statement, but this is the fact. So, similarly, there are few very good STUs and there are few good operators, but because of some bad elements, some bad losing STUs, well-managed STUs are also getting bad name. Similarly, because of badly operated private companies, private operators are also getting bad name. Any sector, if it wants to grow, it has to open up. So if you look at our aviation growth and telecommunication growth, then I believe that if STUs and private operators, they come together unitedly, then next explosion of sector would be in public transport. And that would be organized public transport, not like how it is today. So let us not debate on who is good or who is bad, but if you look at the strengths and weaknesses of each party, so STU has reasonably good infrastructure, I would say. Private companies, they do not have. Trained, experienced manager staff is with STU. Let me tell you that I also have many people, those who have worked in STUs, and they are one of my best staffs. So I really admire some of the STUs. I would not like to name them because other people might not feel good, but there are some really very good STUs. They are doing wonderful job, and we take pride in taking people, those who are retired from those STUs, and they are doing wonderful job with us. Established systems and procedures, though manual, but those STUs, I really hats off to them, how they manage so much of data and the record, the way they keep those records, and still they manage efficiently. without IT, it is really admirable. But when it comes to adoption of new technology, I find STUs are lagging behind compared to private. Then responsiveness to passenger demand also, private are better. Flexibility and fast decision making, of course, because of bureaucracy, it is not possible in STU. And cost effective operation is, some of the STUs I would say they are better than private operations. But overall I am talking about this in general. So it is not the only thing. So I believe if we unite, then we will certainly win. Then we need to define our roles. There are different type of services which are managed by different ways. For example, urban services, planning could be done by urban local bodies. Areas of operation, either it could be STU or SPV, and it has to be, I believe, in monopoly, because city transportation, unless it is given a monopoly, it cannot be managed well. And quality control and aggregation, UMTA can do. And regulation is, of course, with government. Same is with rural. STA will plan routes and other things, but they will have to build their capacities, because presently that is not happening. Then this can be either given to private or STU on controlled competition basis, and control, if at all STU is managing, STA will control, and if private is managing, then STUs can control. So private will work under STUs, and if STUs is managing, I believe maker and checker has to be different. So quality control needs to be looked after by somebody else. But when it comes to intercity, I believe there has to be a private and STU open competition, because luxury, where there is no social obligation. And when you have no social obligation, people will not mind paying more. So this has to be an open sector. This is my personal opinion, because unless this sector becomes open, growth would not happen. Then what would be the role of ASRTCU? This is what I believe is possible to ensure standardization of technology, bus type, bus ports, and services also. Then to make accreditation of private operators. There is no accreditation system today. Today you are running a rickshaw, and tomorrow you might run 10 buses, 5 buses if you have finance, without having any expertise. So there has to be some accreditation system. Then to create single ITS platform for usage of members to share. See, what is happening today, technology is becoming expensive, so unless somebody takes the lead and starts using that technology, other people will not find it beneficial. So small STUs or small operators or small SPVs, they are not in a position to buy high cost technology. So ASRTCU can play that role. And of course to share best practices amongst operators. To build capacity at STU and even at private is very essential. That also role can be played by ASRTCU, and to act as a conduit between operator and government. Second one area which I believe is important is who is going to manage these bus ports or stands or stations. So there has to be some airport authority kind of a thing. So ASRTCU can even think of becoming one. So these are the buses which we are using today, and I believe that for high-end, see, we have a variety of services, starting from ordinary, because we are a country of poor people, so we still require normal kind of standard kind of buses. But because those buses dominate our services, I can give you example of low-cost airlines. Till the time low-cost airlines came into existence, air traffic was very low. But the moment low-cost airline came into existence, that volume, all of you know, has skyrocketed over last many years. So if we bring in attractive products, new products, then things would change. Our experience is, since we started using these sleeper coaches, our night services, they have grown tremendously. But unfortunately today there is no prototype, no model, no safety. So it is being question marked. But we must understand, if it is customer need, then we'll have to find out ways to fulfill that need. We have stopped operating double deckers of course, initially it was for economical reason, but now if you see London double deckers, they look so beautiful, and probably economic wise also they may be making more sense because they are hybrid now. I don't know when we will be able to see buses like this in India. So there are some more buses like this. This is a tourist bus. This is a double-decker bus which is globally operated. In Delhi, we are operating hop-on hop-off bus service for last 5 years by single-decker bus. Particular type of bus is required for particular type of usage. But unfortunately, we try to use same type of buses for all applications. I'll finish. So there are some of the photographs of hybrid buses. Then one of the things which comes to my mind is, can we combine this Swachh Bharat Abhiyan with low-cost public transportation? Is it possible? Because now JNRN scheme, I don't know what is going to happen, whether funding will come or not, but I believe that Swachh Bharat Abhiyan might give us some funding, and that might also subsidize our operations. So then these are the photographs of some of the bus stops. These are some of the photographs of bus ports which you see abroad. And even now we have seen some bus stops, some bus ports like Baroda and Ahmedabad has also come up very recently, which are very good. So we must change our strategy to compete with personal vehicles. So I have, because of short of time, we will not be able to go through this. But except comfort and privacy, I believe all other concerns of traveler can be fulfilled, which are not being fulfilled today. And this will change the scene. Today, this is what is happening. See, if you look at manufacturers, their major focus is probably low cost, so innovation, new models. If you look at operators, either they are under social obligation or they are looking for short-term gain, and government is after taxes. So everybody is pulling passengers away from us. So passenger goes away. But if all of us decide to come together, then only we will get our consumer back. Unless getting our consumer back is very difficult, then these are some of the responsibilities which I have noted down for operators as well as government. So you can have access to this presentation. I will keep it with SRTCU. I can have it on web also. But ultimately what is important is customer is looking out for experience. People go in metro to have that experience. They are not interested whether you are providing public transport on steel track or you are providing public transport on roads. They see those beautiful stations and that environment, and they get attracted to those kind of services. But if we give same kind of services, same kind of environment with bus terminals, bus stop, then we will certainly make a change. Then I think united, that is my major message I would like to give, that united we go to make advocacy at government level or build political will, then modernize our bus stands, have attractive looking, fuel efficient, safe, convenient new generation buses, and use of technology to maximum extent. And lastly, long-term policy for sustainable cities, which is important, then restrict growth of personal vehicles, facilitate walking and cycling, integrate planning, promote use of public transport, and make policies conducive for sustainable public transport. So with this, I say, let us join hands to make passengers happy, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Patwardhan. I know you had to rush through your presentation, so I have summed up some key things for us as panelists here to take an interesting debate. And looking at the panel here, I'm sure the debate is going to be quite interesting. You talked of 10% road budget. You talked of using private operators more. You talked of STUs having great, or state corporations having great skill sets and people. You talked of the need for adopting new technology faster in public sector. You spoke on open more sectors in the urban transport to private players. You wanted to have encouraging, eye-appealing and high-capacity buses as a need for the future. Need for modern ports and bus stations. You brought up the need for working with each other rather than against each other to keep the consumer. You brought up regulations, policies, which should create a win-win situation. So maybe I missed a few, but these were some of the key points you brought in. And I think that before we start the panel discussion, what I have here from ASRTU in terms of good data is some of highlighting facts that 90% of the people who use public transport in India actually travel by buses. So bus is the main mode of public transport. The ratio of number of people, number of buses per 1,000 people is quite low in India. It's less than 1 bus per 1,000 people. In China, it's already at 6 per 1,000 people. In places like Korea, which is a car-producing nation, it's at 26 per 1,000 people. It states here that China has now moved in the last 10-12 years to an economy of about 480,000 units in 2013, is actually heading for 700,000 units. And that part I can confirm myself, being vice chairman of Volvo buses there. I also see exactly the same development and high focus. So what will India do here? Then in looking at the future, it states here that there will be need of 150,000 buses, and about 60,000 crores is the amount approximately which is required as investments to go in as we move forward. I will not go into the challenges. 1 or 2, 3 key challenges which ASRTU really wishes to highlight is that the government is charging 10 to 15% more when STUs probably have bulk purchase of diesel in comparison to retail purchase from petrol and diesel pumps. There are regulatory challenges, legal challenges to bring in new technologies like electric, hybrid, articulated and other alternate forms. There is also the challenge in terms of high taxation, in terms of excise surcharges and local levies and levies, which makes the products or the buses more expensive, and so on and so forth. So this is where we are today. Amongst the panelists, what I would request on behalf of the chair and myself as co-chair is that we look at the future and what do we need to do. If we would get into the justification game of what is right and wrong, then this discussion would not end and probably will not value add and do justice to this session, which is about future of the bus industry. Mr. Alan Floss, when he was the chair yesterday, didn't have the privilege, but said that he had the lady to call last. So I remember that from yesterday. So we will do ladies first today. We have a lady here with us, and in a couple of minutes, if each of one of us can give our views on what you heard and what is the future as you look at it. So let's start from you. A few minutes for you first.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I have actually prepared the presentation, and I will ask the colleagues if they can put it, and if I can have the 6 minutes for the presentation, if you allow me.
Well, we can never challenge ladies in India, you know. So you can go ahead with it, but if you keep it to 5 minutes, that will be good for everyone then to value add.
Honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the IRU and our member associations across the world, in over 100 countries, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the ASRTU for organizing this high-level conference and exhibition, and as a future member of the IRU for making a vital contribution to a greener, safer and more efficient bus industry in India. Allow me to also at this stage introduce to you the IRU for some of you which might not know us as well. The IRU is the International Road Transport Union. We represent truck, coach, bus and taxi operators at the global level. Our passenger transport membership is currently strongly expanded in all 5 continents, and our transport members are operating in the whole professional sector, urban transport, interurban lines and coach tourism, taxi and for hire cars as well. I will go very quickly, as I promised to our chairman. I will not take long through the slides regarding the association I'm representing. We have key partnership with regional and international organizations, and you see here our priority issues. We have an academy as well dealing with training, which is very important, as we mentioned yesterday as well. But linking with the topic of our panel discussion, 5 years ago, as a way to challenge the invisibility of the buses and coaches amongst decision makers, the IRU, together with Busworld, launched a global campaign, the Smart Move campaign, with the aim of doubling the use of buses and coaches by 2025. By substantially improving the perception of buses and coaches among politicians and policymakers, as well as raising awareness of the economic and social contributions, as they were mentioned earlier by Mr. Prasanna, that buses do play in our society. The campaign has grown globally and very steadily. I can mention an example from Germany, where intercity coach lines doubled the last year. And we do have actually a vision regarding collective land transport. This vision is based in these 5 principles, where you can see in the slides. The creation of Smart Move high-level groups around the world, in Europe, Middle East, CIS countries, and individual countries such as Morocco, has set a standard for the private industry on how the private industry and public authorities can actually work together to achieve these objectives by recognizing that collective land transport is the lifeline and the backbone of the mobility system, and by placing buses and coaches where they do belong as the key and the most dynamic part of the door-to-door mobility system, setting clear objectives and defining how a roadmap and an action plan on how to achieve them within a public-private partnership. You see here the high-level groups that we have established the last years. And now I'm very happy to present you the All India Smart Move high-level group. It was actually born some months ago, back in April, in Mumbai, at a joint conference with Busworld Academy, and it aims to work out a joint vision, as well as policy and business recommendations and the short, medium and long-term action plan on removing existing barriers and facilitating bus codes and taxis in India, with the objective to increase the number of users by 2030. Here in this slide you can see the founding members of the high-level group. With the Purple Mobility Solution being one of them, with SRTU, UN Habitat, Embark India and Meru Cabs representing the taxi sector. As I said, here you have the objective of this high-level group, which brings together public and private authorities to come up with a joint vision and an action plan on how to achieve it. And the very first meeting of this group is just after the end of this conference, and I would invite you all to follow the activities of this group. Thank you very much, and I believe I was exactly on time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation on IRU and your comments. So we will not have any more presentations. We'll just have, we go around and take reactions, what we can do for the future of bus industry in India. It's always right for us to start with customers. So I see 2 here, KSRTC. and KSRTC, Kerala and Karnataka. So, Mr. Kataria, a few minutes from you.
Yeah, thank you. I think Mr. Prasanna has given a very detailed presentation. 2-3 items I'll take add in the last about the beautiful presentation between comparison between what he is doing, what I am doing. I miss all my friends sitting here, and his friends are also here. We are all friends actually. I think bus industry in India, if you see the growth, actually I just collected the figure. We had last evening, a good dinner arranged by Volvo. I utilized that opportunity to collect, what kind of size of the luxury coaches are in India. Around 5,000, 6,000?
That's the population, yes.
Yeah. So, in a fleet size of roughly 700,000 buses, maybe more than that, we have only 6,000, maybe slightly more than that, luxury coaches in the country. So, when we talk about the comfort, luxury, and when we say that, look, I mean, I say as MD KSRTC that we have the, honor and pleasure to have those luxury moving on road. And people, I know as MD KSRTC why people appreciate us because of those luxury moving on road. But the size, the population of the luxury in the country is very limited. The 700,000 buses vis-a-vis some 7,000 if I take on the higher side coaches running in the country, is a huge margin. The gap is very wide. Now, if you go back the history, till I think 2-3 years back, we had all truck chassis and a body of bus was put on the truck. I realized when I was posted here in this organization, when we were interacting with Nupur regarding the ITS Mysore, when we started, so we realized why, my bus is not able to, deliver the ITS. I started thinking as what problem, I'm referring to the bus only, that, the bus is not actually, in India, most of these buses, the engine was not designed to ferry passengers. It was basically a truck chassis, and we had put the structure on it to ferry passengers. So when we talk about what kind of bus future we have in the country, we should talk about the comfort, the safety. And when we talk about these two, see the rate difference between an ordinary bus which I buy is around 20 lakhs. I mean, most of these truck type buses which we are buying from 2 or 3 manufacturers in the country. And I go for the high-end buses, it's almost 4 to 5 times. I mean, roughly 95, Akash? Yeah?
That's right.
Yeah, around 95. So, it's almost 4.5 times. So, that's why the size of the population of luxury buses in India, the size is very limited. Now, there are 3-4 options we have in future. Number one, like I know, like when we started with Volvo, it was a single axle. Single axle bus you call? Yes. Yeah, single axle bus we started. Then a high-end version came, multi-axle. Now, when we started the first version, people started using that, liking that, and that culture of using a luxury bus on Indian roads started. Then we added further comfort, multi-axle bus came, and now when we talk about, I have the ordinary truck type buses, I have the single axle buses, and I have multi-axle. Now even the single axle is almost phased out. People, when I have the option, I remember when I bought few new buses from one of the manufacturer recently, I had a major demand that please introduce the multi-axle bus. So now multi-axle culture has come, that luxury culture has come. Now this is the high time. We should think of providing road journey as a comfortable journey. Unfortunately, in most of the places I would say in India, road journey is not considered as a luxury. We don't consider that road journey especially in the, I would say the bus, whether it's owned by me or by Prasanna, generally people don't prefer the road journey because of maybe it's not very comfortable, it's not very safe. Now, to make this industry grow, which will grow, but we can give a direction to this industry, how this industry can grow in future. Number one, we can provide, when we talk about it, let us have international specification when we go for the bus building or maybe the engine designing. While designing that, we can also think of the comfort, safety, which is again a major issue. I think a session before this we had about the women's safety. I am talking about general safety issue, safety when we move in the bus, general safety, covering all the aspects of safety. We also talk about environment. I think eco-friendly buses can also be planned in future. When we talk about eco-friendly buses, whenever you add this eco, suddenly the cost of the bus goes up, becomes unviable for the STUs or for the private operators to come out with those, whether it's electric bus or maybe a bus with the cleaner fuel. So we should think about how to we can have a bus moving on road with full luxury and safety, which is comfortable for an operator like me or operator like Prasanna to buy and to run on road, provide safety and comfort to the passengers. We unfortunately, we try. Prasanna just touched upon the innovations of the road transport sector to come in the international experience here in India. I think that is another area when we talk about bus. Let us not just take bus alone as an independent item. We should also think in totality, right from my house to my destination, all kind of first mile, last mile connectivity, then the infrastructure to be provided at the bus ports, and then the other connected facilities which I would expect in the bus. I remember, we have a bus in Mysore, I call it Fly Bus. It's internationally known now. It's connecting airport to Mysore. We sell this idea that this is the only bus, only flight on road. Why is a flight? Because in a flight there are two things which we don't get in a bus. In a flight, if you have to use washroom, you can use, but in a bus in India we don't. Similarly, if you are hungry, you can buy, or some airlines, they provide some food. So when we started this Fly Bus, a flight on road, so these two facilities were added. Though it looks very small if you travel internationally, but in India, adding these two, that a toilet and a small pantry, I am making, if I am right, from the day one profit in that operation, though with less occupancy. So those are small things which we can add actually. So what I am saying is, these are small things. The international experience can be shared. Now, because this time is short, I'll just touch upon 2-3 issues here, which I had taken from Prasanna's presentation. As I mentioned, that we have around roughly slightly more than 6,000 luxury coaches in the country. Most of them are manufactured by Akash, and few of them are by other 1 or 2 manufacturers. Out of 6,000 buses, I gathered some information that luxury is actually between me and Prasanna. I represent my all STU friends. I have roughly slightly more than 50% of buses, and I add to it, I provide this comfort, luxury comfort in the cities where I incur loss, but I still run because I want people to get this idea of using luxury. If luxury is provided, the idea of traveling in a public bus, that a bus can also be a luxurious journey, spending good time, we are adding to this. Roughly, what I am saying is that roughly 50% buses are run by the STUs in the coach segment. 50% of buses are also in the private sector, but the major worry, it is not the fight between me and Prasanna. The major problem in the bus industry in future is that is a huge unorganized sector, which is not with me, not with Prasanna and like his friends, organized private sector I am saying, referring to. We have a huge, very huge unorganized sector in the entire country, very unsafe, not following norms, drivers are not trained. I think yesterday the Honorable Minister has mentioned how the driving licenses are issued in this country. till recently we never had bodybuilding code. So people were constructing buses without following any defined norms. So the future for the bus industry is that let us have standardization in each area and then provide the bus service. This industry has to grow, because as he was saying that 90% of the people, roughly I am told around 25 million people travel in the rail every year, every day in our country, with having almost 100,000 miles connectivity in the country. Whereas in the bus, I am referring to the bus industry, both STU and the private sector, we are roughly faring 80 million people every day. So roughly 85 to 90% I would say. So that is the size of population using the road industry. And if you see the growth, the graph he has shown is growing very fast. So this industry has to grow. While going up, I think we should ensure that we follow the standard norms, international standards. We adopt to the best practices. All innovations we should, as a part of the system, that's how the road and the bus industry will grow in future. Thanks.
Thank you for your views, Mr. Kataria. Before I come to Kerala State Corporation, I think not to lose the context, I think you highlighted a good point, and I want to capture it in the heat of the moment. And just not to get into a debate, but that is where I think the future of bus industry has a challenge. As responsible for international operations for Volvo Bus outside of Europe, I just would like to say that in a number of years in India, you tend to sell the same volume as you sell in a developing country like South Africa or or Morocco, or developed countries like Singapore or Hong Kong, and so on and so forth. But the difference is that we are not a nation, we are a continent in size. We are 1.3 billion people, and that needs to change, because a place like Brazil or China, you sell the same kind of products in the range of about 4,000 to 5,000. So there is something we really need to do together. And I think one of the challenge also is that when you call it a luxury bus, 40% of that luxury goes to the government as taxes. And if people like you will support us, we as manufacturers who have set in large number of facilities here, then I think that more affordable transport will be available. And even KSRTC and others will prosper.
I would also like to add here, because we do not have, a fair competition. I mean, I was telling yesterday that I'm happy that another company from his land, his company's land is also in India. I would like, like we have two local operators. So I think this industry has to grow. Then we have to have more manufacturer in India. Based in India, when you talk about Make in India, maybe more manufacturers can come, so that we can have competition. That competition will give us the quality product and also competitive prices.
Thank you. So let's take a few minutes. I know people are hungry for lunch, but they're also hungry to know what can the future of bus industry be. So let's see what we get from you.
Thank you, Chair. In fact, Kerala State Road Transport Corporation, in Kerala we run around 27% of the public transport, and remaining is handled by the private operators. Parallel to the STU and private legitimate operators, we have parallel services also, which is killing the operations of and the profitability of the STUs as well as the private operators. Now coming to the products, you give better product, you get the good customers. As Kataria Sahab was saying, we introduced the first single axle Volvo buses. The response was very attractive, and the people in Kerala have taken it very sweetly. We were operating the buses, 3 buses. We have bought only initially 3 buses, and it was running profitably, and people were all using it, and it went into this thing that when the Volvo launched the multi-axle, there was a public demand that KSRTC should go in for the multi-axle so that better product comes into the market. Now, the cost by which we purchase it and provide the service, the safety, all are the aspects which is now coming into the picture. If we buy the chases, the cost is it is only 12 lakhs, plus we build the chase body, and you get the bus at 20 lakhs or 22 lakhs. Now, your bus is costing around 95 lakhs or 1 crore. I think it is now 1 crore 15 lakhs. So, and your Scania, the competitor, the product is also coming, already has come into the market, and with more safety features, the product is well accepted, and the commuters are well happy with the product. That shows the market will take the product which is best, and if we offer best, there is no comparison. People will, instead of taking air service, people will use road transport. Especially in Kerala, the issue is our people, lot of our people are working in Bangalore. So from Bangalore to Kerala, you have a tremendous demand, such a way that people doesn't rely on air. People are all relying on buses because it will reach to your doorstep. So, and sometimes the issue is, if the fares are such a way that the road transport fares we are able to match in such a manner that it is much cheaper than the airfare. Sometimes it is matching, but otherwise since we are providing a better service, the customers are coming to us. Now the point is, we have to provide a better service, better product, better luxury, better safety, then road transport, the public will rely on it. That is what I want to push.
Thank you. And as I said, now there are 5 or 6 manufacturers available in the country which have put in complete bus setups, all to cater to what is going to happen in India in future. So hopefully that will move in the right direction. I would like to diverge a bit here and come to Mr. Ambud Sharma and get more of a central government or a Ministry of Heavy Industry view. Over to you, Mr. Ambud Sharma.
Good afternoon to all of you. Looking at the future of bus and bus industry and bus experience in India, I think we have far too long concentrated basically on passenger cars. When we were making our automotive mission plan to 2006 to 16, which was almost we are at the end of the first automotive mission plan, what we imagined was basically it was concentrated only on passenger cars, and we gave certain numbers that we will go from 3 or 4 per thousand to something like 12 or 14 per thousand, and an annual CAGR growth of 12 to 14%. We are glad to report that we have achieved those targets in passenger cars, but no attention was paid to public transportation in that automotive mission plan 1. So with that experience in mind, now we are on the verge of launching our automotive mission plan 2, which is for the next 10 years. And that is from 2016 to 26. And this is one of the first points that we noted, and we noticed, and we have incorporated it in the next plan, which is going to be revealed in a month or two, that we should give adequate significance and importance and emphasis on the public transportation, and bus segment particularly deserves the rightful place. So we are going about it in a scientific manner. We've asked the consultant to actually do an extrapolative exercise of actual transportation pattern in major cities and tier 2 cities, tier 1 cities, and to see as to what is the actual demand of transportation trips in a city or in a group of cities in a day, in a month, in a week, which has never been done. I mean, we have some data here and there of Delhi and other places, but it is not done on a scientific basis. So we just don't know actually how many people would shift, let's say, from two-wheeler or from single occupancy car for their daily commutation needs. So that is the kind of exercise we are doing now, and in this next 10 decadal automotive mission plan 2, we hope to cover that in a big way, and that should address one of the major points which Mr. Prasanna put in his presentation, that we are only one bus per 1,000. So even Mr. Prasanna could not tell actually what number should be per 1,000 to satisfy the urban commutation or even intercity commuting requirements. So scientifically we need to arrive at that, number one. Number two, the whole part of experience of a bus transport system is not just the bus per se, but also the ecosystem, which includes maybe ITS, it includes the ticketing, it includes the fare structure, it includes other things like eats or drinks or toilet facilities, etc., etc. And over and above that, what is the average speed? What is the kind of road system you have in the country? Today, I think both the train system in India as well as the bus system in India, it has an average speed of 50 kilometers per hour, which may be far, far below any other, even some of the other developing countries, and certainly far below the developed countries. So unless we can improve our commuting speeds, I mean, it will be a hard task to really press and increase the role or share of public transportation in India. The other thing is the fare structure. Today, STUs are almost bracketed along with SEBs, that is State Electricity Boards. And State Electricity Boards are all in a perpetual mess, and maybe hundreds of thousands of crores worth of debts and losses. And STUs are put on the same bracket, whereas the two services are entirely different. The two business models are entirely different. We need to, in most of the states you will find, there is no increase in fare structure for maybe 10 years, 12 years, 15 years. And even if there is no benchmarking with the inflation, with the cost of operations, with the capex cost of the vehicles, etc., etc. So ultimately we need to create an ecosystem which is self-sustaining. It would be a fallacy to say that, oh, your bus is too costly and you need to give a cheaper fare structure. Of course you are competing with rail fare and with air to some extent for at least up to 400, 500 kilometers. Beyond 500 kilometers you can't compete with air. But with rail you will definitely be competing, and rail fares have been going up almost every year, if not once in 2 years at least. Whereas bus fares hardly go up for 10 years, 5 years. We have seen in my Kada state, we see it for maybe 10 years it doesn't go up at all. The other main future requirement would be to have cleaner fuels, alternate fuel, alternate powertrains, and that is where the hybrid and electric mobility is very important, and our department and our ministry is really pushing it hard. We have recently launched a scheme on 1st of April of this year with a good allocation of something like 800 crores for the first 2 years, and bus transportation is the focus area in that. We can go to any extent, we can give you any amount of incentive, we can give viability gap. Under the scheme itself, for hybrid bus itself, there is a maximum subsidy of 61 lakh. You would never have seen this kind of subsidy in any scheme of the government of India before. And for electric bus, we are yet to calculate, because at that time when we were drawing up the scheme, there was no electric bus manufacturer in India. But now we are working with the OEMs to develop 2 or 3 different types of electric buses. One is electric bus with fast charging facility, on-board battery. That is number one. Number 2 variant we want to develop with them jointly is a trolley bus system, which you see in most cities in Europe. And the third is a supercharger kind of concept where it can charge intermittently, and it would go on for 10 or 15 or 20 kilometers, and then it can recharge again. It's a spurt of energy given over a few seconds. So these are the things which are very, very much doable the government is keen to collaborate both with OEMs and with technology providers. Similarly, there is a huge scope for retrofitment of old buses. May not be more than 10 years, but at least 5, 6, 7-year-old buses can be definitely retrofitted with hybrid technology. There are technology providers today. We have a scheme going on with that. So with the kind of representation that we have here from many STUs, I would like to exhort you to pay a little bit of attention to our website, that is dhi.gov.in at NIC. You can find the Department of Heavy Industries website. You can find the entire scheme on electric mobility there. It is titled as Faster Adoption and Manufacturing of Electric and Hybrid Vehicles in India, very aptly titled as FAME India. We want to bring FAME to the bus and public transportation and clean transportation in India. You can look at the, see, initially you might feel that the cost of a hybrid bus is too high, and instead of one hybrid bus, you can put 3 diesel buses on the road and public will be that much more happier. But the cost of a bus is not only a factor or a complement or a, criteria based on technology. Technology will drive down costs over a period of time. For example, lithium-ion battery costs are going down. With lightweighting maybe and better materials, to some extent that will contribute. But scale is the most important factor, and if we go on purchasing only 1 or 2 buses in a year, then it's not going to drive down costs at all. And the cost of hybrid and electric bus in India, manufactured in India, made in India, will come down only with scale. And we have, during when we were drawing up this scheme, we had calculated if we can give an order of 1,000 buses a year, our OEMs, Tata, Ashok Leyland, Volvo, would be in a position to give a bus in which your total cost or life cost of ownership, life cycle cost, will be a positive for you over the period of 8 or 10 years, whatever you calculate. You would have recovered the cost in 4.5 years. That is, believe me, if we can have an annual market size of 1,000 hybrid or 1,000 electric buses, which is very, very much doable. We have, I think, 15 or 17,000 buses being purchased by different STUs in a year. And if we can devote a little bit of focused attention on this, very soon we can migrate to this modern technology, green technology. Government of India, DHI is with you, and we would like to have pilot projects. We have already sanctioned 25 hybrid buses for MMRDA in Mumbai. We have sanctioned 5 hybrid buses for Navi Mumbai. We are going to sanction for Bangalore very soon. And similarly, we are looking forward to similar projects, pilot projects for hybrid and electric buses from different STUs. Kindly feel free, and we are at your disposal for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the encouraging words and things to come. So I think we've really run out of time here, which means that we probably do not have more than few lines for each of the other participants. So, Per, a couple of minutes for you.
Hello, Per Oleby from Scania. No, I will say in summary that I think the future for the Indian bus industry is really good, because there will be a lot of buses needed in the future. And over the last 2 days here, we have seen a lot of good presentations and interesting discussions, and even some fierce debates. So you could, of course, have different theories on what we should do. But I think the important thing is that we in this room and in the business have a responsibility to make Indian public transport better. And to do that, we will need a lot of different solutions. There is no silver bullet that will solve everything. We will need different types of buses, different types of fuels, electrical buses, hybrids, BRT systems, and every possible thing we could find out to solve this. So I think that is my short remark, and I think we will have a good future in this business.
Thank you, Per. Quick comments from you, Partha.
Thanks. Yes, a few quick things. The bus industry is poised for a growth, but the question is that how do we want to see it growing? You want to see it growing naturally and the way it is doing right now, or we really want to see it grown and robust for next 50 years or so? So if you want to see it grow just in a simple manner, in a natural organic manner, then okay, 50% users, 50% of the city's travelers are still using buses. And that's going to remain for a very large chunk of years. So if that makes you happy, then it is good. But my view is that nearly 60% of your commuters, and that's the national data, who would like to shift to a motorized mode the day they can afford, whether it is a three-wheeler, whether it is a personal two-wheeler, or whatever it is. So how do we have them is the strategy which is going to make us future-proof. And I think buses will always remain, but there has to be a lot of support which comes from the government. DHI obviously has been helping us like anything, I mean us as in the industry, but we have 8% excise tax for small cars and we have 12% for buses. Are we really promoting buses? If you are promoting buses, then it should come down even more, because excise duty should come down and the cost should obviously come down. If you are opening the market, we talked about opening market and Prasanna made a very good point, but in that case my point will be like this, that why don't we open up more and we allow CBU imports and remove the import duties for special luxury buses? And when it comes to talking about luxury, I want to understand the definition of luxury. If you are talking about low-floor buses as luxury, then I will say low-floor buses are almost like a necessity now in urban cities. Because if you talk about ladies and old senior citizens who are using the buses, climbing the flights of stairs is not an easy thing. So I think we have to move away from the perceptions. We know that the bus industry is here to grow, but let us make it more robust so that it grows and the growth is more sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you, Partha, also for respecting the time. So, Nishant, a few minutes for you.
I think we've had a very good discussion today. A lot has already been said. But I would just like to share that how, like Partha talked about low-floor buses, how they're really helpful for elderly people, children, to really see that commute becomes very comfortable. And we heard like how commute has to be very comfortable, very safe for people to really use buses as a choice, not as a compulsion for them. So I think it's very important to do that. On the other front, for the operators or for the STUs, they need to see that how, if they're making it affordable, they are not making losses. For that, green buses are a great option. As Amboj Sharma ji shared with us a few minutes back, that the operating cost in green buses is about 1/3 or 50% lower than the existing buses. So therefore, that's the way to go in the future, and with the existing government policies and the upcoming policies, I think that will provide a very good impetus for companies, for manufacturers like us and Volvo and Scania and many others to really move forward. So with this support, we'll need that kind of interaction, the STUs and others, for this industry to grow and for this technology to take up. Thank you.
Thank you. So, in interest of time, as Volvo, I'll forego my comments. A lot has been already said. I just want to add here that more from a global perspective, we are a great country, we're a big country. The world is looking at us to make things happen. Our business environment is fairly challenging because we tend to challenge each other quite a lot. So there's need to bring, as we said earlier, win-win situation here. So sometimes I feel that we're always trying to do everything right with what we do. And it's time that we start to make some mistakes. But what is important is we learn from those mistakes and move up to the next steps. And that is what we're looking at. The second most important thing is leadership. And I think that whichever areas we look around, we need young leaders to be driving things so that change can be brought in, openness can be brought in, as Mr. Prasanna said, to new technologies and so on and so forth. With those words, I'd like to quickly take one or two questions before we close the session.
Just to add, just discussing with Sonalila, it's regarding, in the few of the countries they have this classification of the bus service, the star classification. Like when you go to a hotel, you know that you are paying for 2-star, 3-star, 4-star, 5-star. Something like that can also be thought of. I mean, in the future, the bus industry. The issue which you have discussed. You can share if you want to know.
Sure, and it does exist in some countries, I can tell you that.
Exactly, that was what I mentioned earlier to Mr. Kataria, that this is the coach classification system that the IRU is implementing in 15 countries till now, and this will be part of the discussion later in the meeting at 4 at the Abad room. So I'll leave it for later to discuss.
Good comment. Thank you, Mr. Kataria. Yes, please.
Good afternoon, and first of all, compliments to the organizers of this conference, and special compliments to Mr. Ananda Rao. I am a tourist transport operator based in Delhi on the name of Bakshi Transport Service Private Limited.
Your question is to?
My question is to the general respected panelists. Everybody has been talking about the rise in the luxury coaches. Gentlemen, it's more than 15 years we've been requesting the respected Ministry of Tourism and Ministry of Surface Road Transport to give the tourist luxury vehicles the national permit, which has still not been given. The Mantriji spoke about it yesterday for a short moment. National permit is what has been given to the goods vehicle. A goods vehicle pays about 12,000 rupees tax per year. A bus pays 12,000 rupees for a same-day trip to Jaipur. 12,000 per year per truck. A bus pays 12,000 same-day trip to Jaipur. First of all, we should bring the buses into the essential commodity, just like the trucks have been made. Why I say that? Because we are still in the same era where Tata and Leland are providing us the truck chassis to make a luxury coach. 12 years, 13 years down the line, Volvo was the first to bring our mindset up when we were building a coach for 15 lakhs and they got a vehicle for 45 lakhs. 3 times more than that. Now our thought has been risen. We are affording to buy a Volvo for 90-95 lakhs. That's okay, fine. Today, what is happening? A tourist coach is not allowed to fit in curtains after that Nirbhaya case. Why? You must have been seeing the tourists and passengers planting newspapers and other things on the windows to save themselves from the sun rays. We have been respecting, if the respected Mr. Sanjay Bandyopadhyay is listening, we have been requesting him, please differentiate between an elite tourist transport operator who are recognized by the Ministry of Tourism, Government of India, and the fly-by-night service people. The Nirbhaya case happened in the coach which was non-recognized, non-permit, illegal vehicle, non-fitness. Also, the other thing which the Ola and Uber cars are doing, that is creating an issue for the general women respectability. We have been asking the government to clear these issues so as we fall different and then we can rise and go for the vehicles today. Another point, very important point before I forget, and the government is still considering the Volvo and the other luxury vehicles into the same category of 8 years life. Spending 1 crore of rupees, we do not come into the same bracket of 8 years life. We've requested them that all over the world the life of these luxury vehicles is 15 years and more. We must be getting minimum 12 to 13 years. The road should be good enough so that the luxury coaches can fly on it. If through you and through Mr. Ananda Rao and through this convention, we can put forward the points to the respected government, I think the luxury vehicles will sell like hotcakes. Believe me. Thank you.
Some of your concerns are being taken care of in the draft road safety bill, but many other which are on a day-to-day basis like curtains or some other things which you pointed out in your suggestion would have a lot to do with ease of doing business. Ease of doing business is not just for setting up the industry; it's also for running tourist cabs and tourist cars and these things. So I would suggest you please give it. Each ministry is having very focused attention on ease of doing business. So please give these suggestions to Ministry of Tourism.
Given plenty number of times, sir.
I'm sure they will be able to move forward on that.
I'll put in a request to you also, sir. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, with that, I'd like to close the session. So, in paucity of time, it's an award ceremony after that. So, thank you all the panelists here for sharing your views openly, and thank you for being so patient with us as an audience.
Thank you, session chair and co-chair, and also to our expert panel here for deliberating on this very important issue. Ladies and gentlemen, before we conclude this session, may I please request Mr. Ambud Sharma in his capacity as session chair to present the mementos to all our panel here. May I please request him to kindly present a memento to Mr. Rajendra Kumar Kataria. To Ms. Sunila Metushi. May I please request members in the audience to kindly stay back with us because we are going to immediately have the award session, and after that we will break for lunch. May I please request you to kindly remain with us. May I now request him to present a memento to Mr. Anthony Chaco, to Mr. Per Albi, to Mr. Nishant Arya, to Mr. Partha Bosu, to Mr. Prasanna Patwardhan, and on behalf of ASRTU, may I please invite Mr. Anand Rao to kindly come on stage and present a memento to our session chair, Shri Ambud Sharma. And also to our session co-chair, Sir Akash Basse.
Yes, pleasure.
Thank you.